Hi, my name is Laura Ritza. I'm a program manager on the policy and security team on Microsoft Endpoint Manager.
Hi, I'm Asavri Navathe, and I'm a program manager on the Microsoft Endpoint Management team.
Today, we're going to be walking you through the things that we're doing in Microsoft Endpoint Manager for modern policy management and for security and productivity. In this session, we're going to cover how we're approaching device configuration and the options available to do this in a modern way. We'll talk about what's new in security baselines, and then we'll go over some of the tools available to migrate from group policy and group policy analytics. Throughout the session, we'll cover feedback that we've been hearing from our customers, what we're doing to address this, and we'll also show you some product demos of new things that are coming down the line and what you can expect to see in the console in the future. Wherever you are in your cloud management, whether you're still thinking about your move to Intune, or you've started with co-management, or you're completely on the cloud, use Microsoft Endpoint Manager. It truly is your hub to unify security, apps, access, compliance, and end user experience across your entire technology estate. And because it can leverage Microsoft's powerful data set, it is also intelligence, delivering analytics and signals to keep you ahead of change so you can keep costs down and your organization running smoothly, whatever the future brings. And we believe partners are key to success, and Endpoint Manager is also the integration point for the ecosystem. Now, in Microsoft Endpoint Manager, there are a number of different ways to configure a device configuration profile across iOS, Mac, and Windows platforms. But if we just zoom in on the Windows 10 configuration profiles, the old way of doing this is using group policy and Active Directory, where you're enrolled to a domain and you need to go through and configure a whole bunch of settings and third-party ADMX settings. Now, in the modern policy world and migrating over from group policy, we can use the tools that are provided in the MEM console to go ahead and do this. Now, first of all, we recommend that you start with security baselines that are built right into the console. Baselines act as a really great starting point to take recommended values and settings from security experts and use those as the basis to define your policies. Previously, you'd have to go to the group policy website, download a baseline, look at it, compare it, and then deploy it. But now with MEM, you can use the built-in baselines straight from the console without having to go and hunt it down manually. But we know that not one size fits all, so we've added additional security-specific settings to cover scenarios for antivirus, disk encryption, firewall, endpoint detection, attack surface reduction, and doing all of that using endpoint security profiles. Now, in addition to that, we've also added over 800 plus individual settings so you can configure device configuration profiles for things like BitLocker and device restrictions. And on top of that, we've also added administrative templates for ADMX reg-based settings to expose whatever else Windows exposes to fill the gaps that might be there. Overall, this is the full picture on the configuration options that are available today in MEM to deploy your MDM policies. Now, when looking at our policy management system, we've heard and taken in a lot of feedback from our customers for where their pain points are and where we can go and improve. Now, the first main point of feedback is around our reporting. We've heard the feedback that there is sometimes inconsistent reporting, where in some summary views we show an aggregate number, but when I go and drill down, I might get a slightly different number. Also, that there's not even enough drill downs to know which devices are in a state of error or conflict, which can make it really difficult to troubleshoot. So the request is to have more views around this. In addition, there are issues with latency on the policy reporting states, which is a common theme across Intune and something that we are actively working towards, but we definitely want to address this in the policy space. The second point of feedback is around policy authoring, where we've heard the need to have more consistent, better organized UX to choose your settings and define your policies, regardless of the configuration type that you're using. Also, there being feedback on the lack of day zero support of new OS releases. We definitely hear that, and our goal going forward is that there are all the controls that are exposed by the clients there in MEM as well. The next piece of feedback is around policy deployment, where there's a lack of support for policy version updates and advanced policy management, as well as around policy enforcement and compliance. There's a lot of requests for more out of compliance actions like retire states and quarantine states. So in looking across all of this feedback, we're investing really heavily in each and every single area to try to improve the experience across all of our configuration options. The areas that we'll be addressing in today's session specifically are 1, ensuring that we have a consistent and common UX for settings across all of our device configuration profiles. 2, to have improved reporting for those troubleshooting scenarios so that you can look at setting conflicts and errors a lot easier. The goal is to have reports with fast, consistent data that will help you know when things are in a failure state. And in addition to that, making sure that we have familiar UX and documentation to make the transition really smooth when you're coming from group policy. So one way that we're looking to address this feedback is through a new look and feel for choosing the settings that can be defined in a device configuration profile. We're working on the next iteration of device configuration to be able to dynamically create UX for settings that take information directly from the Windows CSP and use this as the source of truth for the setting name, description, values, docs, and add this to whichever profile that you're creating. So you can see the example in the screenshots on the screen, where as a user, I want to be able to allowing Bluetooth. The setting is called directly from the CSP, and from here I can go and configure the value. Also, if I wanted to add additional settings, I can choose from what we call a settings catalog to add this to my profile and do this regardless of the type of profile that it is. So overall, this allows us to have one source of settings across all of the different configuration types and make it really easy to customize the settings that you want to be part of your profile.
On the reporting front, we have some really exciting reports that are coming down the line in policy. The end goal is to ensure all places where you see policy data that it's fast, consistent, clear, and helps with whatever scenario that you're coming from in the console. The newest thing coming out of this is surfacing 2 new policy operational reports, which can be found under the Devices node in the Monitor tab. You can see here that I have 2 new reports coming in preview. The first is called Assignment Failures, which shows me the list of device configuration profiles, the profile type, the platform, and the count of devices in a state of error or conflict. The same goes for the non-compliant policies report, which shows me the same views for compliance policies with devices in a state of non-compliant and error. In each of the reports, I have the ability to sort on every single column, search across the records, filter, page, in every single view so that it makes it really easy to navigate. On top of this, the records refresh within minutes to address some of the concerns on latency for policy states. If I drill down into one of these items from the report, I can see the breakdown of devices and user combinations in those states of error and conflict. If I search for one of these users or devices, from here I can drill down even further to look at the list of settings applied to the device as per that selected profile and see all of the settings and their states. I can pick out the one that is in a state of conflict, or in this case error, to look at the details to know what caused the error on that setting. These views really help to streamline the troubleshooting process and help me to know when and where things need my attention.
Now, if we shift over to another configuration option that we have in the console, there's a lot of value in using security baselines to configure modern MDM policy. Baselines act as a great starting point to take a set of recommended values and settings from security experts, make customizations wherever you need them, and deploy this out to devices and users. We've heard the feedback that baselines are sometimes viewed as a different entry point from device configuration profiles, but we really want to emphasize that the two are meant to work really well together, where you can start off to use a baseline and then add any additional device configuration profiles on top of that if there's any gaps that aren't covered in the baseline for your scenario. But based on that feedback, we're making investments in this space to try to have a really smooth experience between the two. So for one, we're looking to build up the content that we have with baselines. We're staying current with version updates on the ATP and MDM baselines. We've recently surfaced the Edge baseline, and we're also soon to be publishing the Edge baseline so that it's really easy for you to stay up to date and utilize what's available straight from the console. In addition to this, we're making a lot of improvements on the reporting side to have a consistent look and feel with the experience for device configuration. Some things that you'll see new are we're having more granular statuses to know when things are in a state of error, conflict, or pending states. We're also adding additional information to the device level reports so that you can see more information around setting details and again recognize when there are failures occurring to make it really easy for you to troubleshoot across your console. For example, you can see in this mock-up of a baseline version, one of the improvements that we're making is changing the baseline posture statuses and definitions to be a lot more granular so that we can call out when devices or settings are in a state of error or conflict and make it really, really clear when they are in a state of success if that's against the default recommended value or the customized value of the setting that has been made by the IT admin.
All right, so let's talk about group policy analytics. Group policy analytics allows you to analyze on-prem group policy objects and determine the level of modern management support for these settings. Use the Group Policy Management console to export your relevant group policy objects and import them in Microsoft Endpoint Manager. Microsoft Endpoint Manager will then run an analysis of the policies to determine if there is modern management support. This only leaves the targeting and assignment of the policy up to the admin. In the past, group policy settings were added to MDM based on customer demand, but since then there has resulted in a large gap that affects customers from getting off of group policy. There are customers who have provided us feedback that specific areas of Windows, Office, or browser management are not found via MDM, and thus, as a customer, they're blocked from getting off of their on-prem solution, despite the other benefits of doing so. As such, Group Policy Analytics is a good entry point for customers who are already using on-prem group policy but want to move to cloud-based policy management. We have heard that this is a scary journey for those who do not want to give up their settings. From our perspective, we'll make sure that the information is surfaced to you on what is supported and what is not supported in the cloud, so you have a clear understanding of what we will give up if necessary. We are working very closely with Office, browser, and Windows teams to close the gaps on settings and group policy and bringing them to MDM where possible. So the analytics will start reflecting higher support numbers of settings that exist in MDM with future OS releases of Windows, with future browser releases, and future Office version releases. We will be strategically releasing through the Windows Insiders programs, especially for Windows OS updates, via a phased approach to close this gap between group policy to MDM settings. This tool is currently available in private preview, and we have about 200 customers who have given their GPOs through the import tool to get an understanding of their modern management readiness. With Q4 of this calendar year, we will be public previewing this functionality for all customers. As such, any tenant can log into their console and see this workload without being flighted on a tenant-by-tenant basis. Our tool currently supports a handful of CSPs, including Passport for Work, Policy CSP, BitLocker, and some more. Most recently, we added a migration readiness report to Group Policy Analytics. This is a new organizational report listing deduped settings across all your imported group policy objects. As mentioned earlier, you can import group policy objects using Group Policy Analytics. Observe the migration readiness state for all settings, supported, not supported, or deprecated, and eventually help drive the conversation around cloud-based policy management readiness by taking a look at the data for your group policy at a settings by settings level. Let's take a look. Over the past year, we had more than 160 customers in a private preview for Group Policy Analytics. These customers uploaded their on-prem group policy objects and analyzed their group policy settings at this level to see if these settings could be configured in MDM. But a migration of these settings to the cloud does not happen overnight. It takes some level of sign-offs and alignment among management teams. Microsoft Endpoint Manager has the notion of organizational reports. These provide a broader summary of an overall view, such as device management states across your organization, for example. Managers and admins will find these reports the most helpful. We added a new migration readiness report that will take all your imported Group Policy Analytics objects, dedupe the settings within them, and generate a single report to help identify what the migration readiness of your organization is. Getting to the report itself, a setting can be ready for migration, not supported, or deprecated. A setting that's ready for migration means that this setting in group policy has an equivalent setting in Intune MDM, and it's ready to be migrated to Intune via a cloud-based device configuration policy. A setting that's not supported essentially means that there is no equivalent setting in the cloud. Policy settings that show this status aren't exposed to MDM providers typically, including Intune. Lastly, a deprecated setting essentially means that these settings apply to an older Windows OS version and are no longer used in Windows 10 and newer OS versions. This is important info as you move to modern management because not all of your legacy group policy settings will be applicable. Observe the profile type breakdown to help identify what type of profile or supported setting will fall under. Hit export to share the insights with your team and get sign-off on your migration efforts.
So we have now shown you several different ways to configure policies and settings for your Windows devices. For an IT admin new to the world of device configuration, it might seem overwhelming. Here's one way to think about it. For an organization that is not born in the cloud and has several years of expertise and infra invested in group policy, consider using the Group Policy Analytics tool to analyze your GPOs. Moving on to device configuration for individual settings and the use of administrative templates, these can be used to configure the entire set of exposed configuration of Windows devices in our UI, including the settings that exist in MDM that you now know are supported due to the analysis you just did on your group policies. For cloud-first organizations, admins may consider taking advantage of baselines and templates, which are built-in experts categorizations of security settings to make the lives of IT admins easier. There are currently security baselines for Windows MDM, Office ADMX for Windows, Edge Management for Windows, and Microsoft Defender. The benefit of this is the continued look and insight into new versions of baselines, as well as the ease of updating to newer versions that get released based on the passage of time and the emerging security best practices that end up happening over this passage of time. Using security baselines is optional, of course, but as a cloud-first organization, that might be something beneficial if you don't know where to start. A cloud-first organization can also use standard device configuration profiles for individual settings or administrative templates as well. Next, for security admins who wish to take advantage of some of our most recent work, they can do so through the endpoint security node within our console. Consider using this if your focus is on security-specific experiences and configurations in Windows, such as BitLocker, Mac FileVault, Microsoft Defender scenarios, firewall rules, and application control. In terms of takeaways, let's do 2 takeaways and a call to action. There is a distinct value prop for the different profiles in which you can enable device configuration, policy creation, and Windows modern management. We hope that was conveyed today with our deeper dives. We want to strive for a consistency between all of these methods as much as possible. We want our customers to know that we are listening and addressing the pain points in today's configuration experiences. Please continue to share that with us through user voice, product group engagements, calls, and forums, and even Twitter, so that we can continue to empower our IT admins to make their jobs easier. In terms of calls to action, try out the experience that we covered today and look out for new features in our future releases by monitoring our What's New channels. This includes the new policy reporting experience that has been called out, the new baseline content with new industry recommended best practices, as well as the last call to action, which is upload some of your on-prem group policy objects and check out the migration readiness report as a starting point for discussion within your organization for moving to cloud-based policy management.
Thank you so much for tuning in to today's session. I hope you enjoyed what we covered and definitely made sure to check out some of the other really exciting sessions that are happening as well.
Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.